My name is Raul Moas, and I'm going to be the Miami Program Director for Knight Foundation. So I'm a Miami native, born and raised here. I went to school here. I went to UM twice over. So I love the city in all its forms, right? The good, the bad, and the loud. And being in a role where I can help people who are doing some amazing things in Miami and for Miami seemed incredibly appealing, right? And so Knight Foundation's focus in South Florida is around tech and entrepreneurship. How do we help create an ecosystem that is more attractive and more conducive to having high-impact scaling companies come and stay here, right, and succeed here? And so being able to focus on those programs is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And if it does some good for the community as well, then I'm all about it. So the Knight Foundation is a private foundation that essentially awards grants and makes strategic social investments in infrastructure that supports the entrepreneurial ecosystem here. And so in the past, we've invested or awarded grants to co-working spaces, to accelerators, incubators, programs that help co-founders connect, investment networks, that help companies get seed funding. And so all the pieces that come together to build a thriving community for entrepreneurs. We don't invest specifically in companies that are coming here, but rather the infrastructure, the building blocks for that community. And so that's going to continue to be the focus for Knight Foundation moving forward. How do we attract and retain the best talent out there to come to South Florida and build really cool companies that are changing the way that things are done? The day-to-day is a little bit of everything, right? It's a lot of meeting with folks in the community, a lot of listening, understanding where is it that Miami is today, and where can Knight Foundation have the biggest impact in moving the community forward. Rather, we like to take our cues from the community and say, hey, these are things that are already happening on the ground that folks in Miami are already kind of pointing to, doing at some sort of scale. Let's see if we can accelerate that growth. Let's see if we can kind of deepen that impact. That's our philosophy. It's taking what's already happening and magnifying it. I'm most excited to see Miami continue to come into its own. I think that Miami is an international brand that people from the outside prescribe certain attributes to. South Beach comes to mind, the 80s come to mind, certain television shows have kind of played that up. But Miami is so much more than that, right? Miami is really diverse in many ways, but also very siloed, right? I don't know if we oftentimes cross our own little bubbles or barriers or neighborhoods and see what's on the other side. And so I'm most excited about bringing all those folks together through the platform that is Knight and through the kind of space, the avenue that is entrepreneurship. I think that opportunity is not always readily available to everyone in an equal fashion, but talent is. And so how do you help folks from all over Miami, the very different Miamis that there are, from the Key to Little River, out to West Kendall, Homestead, how do you get everyone from this community to feel like they have agency over what's happening, that they can be a part of this, that it's not just in the urban core that we are investing time and resources and building companies there, that if you're an entrepreneur and you've got a phenomenal idea, that Miami is a home for you no matter what part of the county you're in. So I'm most excited to see those folks come to the table. I know they're already there, but if we can bring more of them and really help them feel like they're generally a part of this conversation and this movement, I'd consider that a win. Knight is going to continue to invest in the infrastructure that helps startups grow and scale in South Florida. In most cases, that means that it's likely a tech play, right? And tech broadly, so right, it could be hardware, it could be software. There's a lot of different spins to that. It could be a marketplace. But we funded a lot of different folks that are working with entrepreneurs of all stripes. One of the kind of more successful and interesting groups that we funded is Endeavor. So Endeavor Global looks for high-impact entrepreneurs, and that entrepreneur can be from anywhere, right? They have brought on folks that are in food and beverage, they've brought on folks that are in software, folks that are in coding schools. They've brought on kind of every color and stripe imaginable into the fold. And I say that they're successful because I think they've reached out to a really kind of broad group of and cross-section of Miami, right? It's really easy to fall into kind of the Silicon Valley, like we're only going to invest in marketplaces and social media and software things. And I think Endeavor's done a really good job of reaching out and saying, hey, there are high-impact entrepreneurs of really different kind of backgrounds that are doing really cool things. Let's bring them to the table and make sure that they have the same chance at being incredibly successful as anybody else. So how's Miami different? I think Miami's different in that anybody that kind of lands here finds a really welcoming place, right? Miami is by far a land of immigrants, and be they kind of international or domestic. A lot of folks move to our hometown, to our city. Either the weather brings them, the kind of the climate or the culture or what have you, but they get here and they realize, man, like I can land here, and within 2 or 3 days, I've connected with some interesting folks, and I can build something. It's not like I have to pay my dues as I would in other markets and meet that one key person that's going to open the door. I think Miami is incredibly open to that person who wants to move here and build something here. I see it currently in my current role at an AGP Miami. We're angel investors. A lot of our investors came from other markets. They came from New York, California, Boston, Chicago, and they get here, and within a few days, they've already kind of framed out different ways to get involved into the city. And so Miami is incredibly open in that way. I think we're also really hungry for this, right? I sit down with entrepreneurs all the time, and there's a certain kind of in Spanish, chispa, there's a certain kind of a spark and kind of grit that our entrepreneurs have, and that they're really hungry for success. And so I think the fact that we're a really open place as a city and as a community, and the fact that folks come here and want to prove themselves, right? It's almost like because you're in Miami, you want to prove yourself to others and yourself more so. I think that's a really good combination. So AGP is an investment group focused on seed investments into early stage tech companies. And so about 100 folks that get together once a month to evaluate early stage companies. Think Shark Tank with a Miami spin on it. And so all that we do, right, my day-to-day there is not only building relationships with folks, investors, and entrepreneurs, but analyzing a lot of opportunities and understanding outcomes, right? And so if the input is capital, the input is talent, what is that entrepreneur, what is that company going to produce as an outcome, right? Growth, ideally, right? More profit, ideally, right? Jobs, development, all that. Applying that investor perspective to some extent to what we're doing here at Night is something interesting for me, right? And so it's a very different role with a very different spin, but nonetheless, we can take a lot of what we've done at AGP in terms of vetting ideas, helping refine and curate those ideas, finding that the sweet spot where we can be most helpful, and then accelerating that growth. AGP, for example, may not always be the best partner for a company, right? Just because we have capital to deploy and money to invest doesn't mean that we're the right partner for you or your startup. And I think it takes it's a good investor is one that says, listen, I'm not the money that you need right now. I'm not the investor that you need right now. I'm not the partner you need right now. Either too early, too late, keep me in mind. I can help you in these other ways. But that's got to be kind of at the core of what we're also doing at Night. Is Night the right partner for you? And if not, let's connect you with somebody who is, right? Let's make sure that you're successful in what you're doing, but in the right space. So Miami already is international, right? I think some folks would joke around that Miami is more international than not, right? That we're more Latin American than American or what have you. And I think there's some kind of truth to that to some extent. Cuba is a huge part of not only my own life and my background, but also Miami, right? Miami's history. And so understanding what that is today and how we at Night can best help the community be a part of that history and understand that history. And then kind of forward-looking as well. Cuba has had in the last few years a really big shift, right, at the grassroots level, particularly on technology, connectivity, entrepreneurship. And so you're seeing, interestingly enough, an intersection where Night plays at the intersection of Miami and Cuba technology entrepreneurship. And so you're seeing kind of near-shore, offshore development shops start up in Cuba, and companies here in Miami hiring them out. Right? And so now an entrepreneur in Miami can hire technical talent, coders, developers in Havana and have that team help build out their company here. That's really interesting, right? Politics and policy aside, right, and history kind of as the overarching umbrella, it's really interesting to think that an entrepreneur in Miami can have good tech talent in Havana, a 45-minute flight, if that, and do kind of day trips, right? That's interesting. I don't see us kind of putting a footprint in Havana anytime soon, but I would love to see Miami become more connected to that. Why? Because I think it's part of Miami's more traditional facet, more legacy facet, and its newer kind of facet. It's the Cuba piece coming together with the entrepreneurship piece, which is a somewhat unexpected combo, right? Like I wouldn't have said 5 years ago, 10 years ago, oh, obviously Miami and Cuba are going to be building cool tech startups together. I think a lot of folks would have laughed at the idea. But as is life, kind of things materialize, and you kind of follow the thread. And so I'd love to see more of that, right? More folks going back and forth, sharing knowledge, sharing insight, and to the extent that they're mutually beneficial, it's helping people there and helping people here build a better life. I'd love to see more of it.